What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Elo Bandit, and today I'm here to talk a little bit about my favorite tier in Pokemon Showdown, 1v1. This will be a three-part series, the first video being an introduction to the metagame, the second focusing on psychology, and the third on strategy. Hopefully, I'll be able to teach you a thing or two about how to build strong teams and win consistently on the 1v1 ladder. Since this video is an introduction to the tier, let me start off by telling you a little bit about 1v1. The format works like this. Both players being 3 Pokemon to team preview, they look at their opponent's 3 and choose one of their Pokemon to fight against the opponent's chosen Mon. The ban list for this tier is basically a bunch of Uber's Pokemon and a couple of items. Arceus, Blaziken, Darkrai, Deoxys, Deoxys A, Dialga, Giratina, Giratina O, Groudon, Ho-Oh, Kyogre, Kyurem White, Lugia, Mewtwo, Palkia, Rayquaza, Reshiram, Shaman Sky, Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zekrom are all banned, as are Focus Sash, Kangaskhanite, Salamence, and Soldew. Also, the moves Perish Song and Swagger are both banned from the tier. Now, what kinds of Pokemon are best at knocking out a single Pokemon? The 5 kinds of Pokemon in 1v1 are Hard and Fast, Bulky Offense, Counter, Stall, and Gimmick. I'll break these all down for you separately. Hard and Fast is the most obvious type of Pokemon you'd expect to be powerful in 1v1. They generally move first in a battle and are powerful enough to net a KO turn 1 or 2. Some of the most effective Pokemon that fall into this category are Choice-Scarf Porygon, Choice-Specs Greninja, Mega Lopunny, Mega Charizard X and Y, and Choice Band Victini. All these Pokemon are able to outspeed and decimate their opponents very quickly. Each of them have their own separate strengths and weaknesses and have to be covered appropriately by their teammates. The second type is very similar. Bulky offensive Pokemon are generally tanky enough to survive a hit and KO back with their own powerful arsenals. Common bulky offense Pokemon include Mega Gyarados, Mega Mawile, Rhyperior, Specs Meloetta, Dragonite, and Mega Metagross. All of these can take some pretty serious damage before knocking out their opponents. The third type is closely related to bulky offense, since the general strategy still relies on taking a hit and KOing back, though a bit more literally. Pokemon that fall under the counter category usually rely on the moves Counter, Mirror Coat, and Metal Burst to reflect damage back onto attackers. Common picks include Deoxys Defense, Mega Aggron, Swampert, Avalugg, and Hitmonlee, who utilizes the Endure Unburden Reversal combo to simulate a counter attack. Also included in this category are the various sturdy Pokemon, like Crustle and Sawk, who cannot be one-shot and dish out extreme damage, usually with a choice item or a Custap Berry. It's not exactly Counter Coat, but it's similar enough to lump together for the purposes of this video. The next category is Stall Pokemon. This means any Pokemon that relies on status and recovery over actual attacking moves. It includes Subseed Whimsicott, Chansey, Mega Sableye, Mega Venusaur, Mega Slowbro, and Ferrothorn. All these Pokemon are extremely powerful in a tier that has no switching allowed. The upsides to using these Pokemon are that you can very effectively whittle your opponents down with things like Leech Seed or status moves. The downside is that it takes forever and matches often go on much longer than most 1v1s. Personally, I have a very short attention span, which is why I love this tier. So I generally avoid using these Pokemon, though that's just personal preference. The very last category is Gimmick Pokemon. Now, each of these Pokemon have their own little strategy that can be very effective against an unprepared opponent. However, every time you use them, you do take that risk that your opponent knows exactly what you plan to do and tries to directly shut you down. The Pokemon in this category include Fear, mostly Aron, Imprison Transform Smeargle, Encore Disable Mega Alakazam, Custap Berry Riolu, and Shedinja. A quick note, there are some Gimmick Pokemon you should not use, namely Ditto, Magnemite, and Nosepass. Ditto has a very bad matchup against every single Mega Pokemon in the tier, as well as almost every bulky offense Mon and every Stall Mon. The only thing it performs well against are non-Mega, non-Scarf, fast offensive Pokemon. It's extremely niche and generally just not worth using. Magnemite and Nosepass are completely 100% outclassed by both Aron and Probopass. Level 1 Nosepass can be toxic, Level 2 Probopass is Seal and cannot be toxic. Otherwise, it does the exact same thing. Magnemite's Toxic Stall, while it technically works, is simply not as effective as Aron's Endeavor comboed with Toxic or Sandstorm. Aron can hit poison types, Magnemite cannot. Aron's Sandstorm has a 100% chance to finish an opponent, Magnemite's Toxic only has a 90% accuracy. Bottom line, if you're going to use Fear, use Aron, or Probopass. Moving on! Well-built teams are able to counter every threat on the ladder with at least one of their Pokemon. Now, the ladder is a very broad spectrum of popular Pokemon and skill levels, so let me break it down for you. 1000 ELO to 1100 ELO is a clusterfuck of every single Pokemon in the game. Often, your opponents won't even bring 3, but you'll simply try to battle with their solo Clefable, Ditto, or Charizard. As long as you bring 3 decent Pokemon, there should never be a problem tearing out of low ladder, especially since games are so short and you can win again and again in a short period of time. 1100 to 1200 means a slightly better version of a low ladder. Here you'll still see things like people bringing only one Mon or teams just randomly thrown together Pokemon, but there still shouldn't be any problems as long as you bring actually powerful Pokemon. More on that later. 1200 to 1300 is where the meta actually starts to take shape. You'll still find the occasional crazy team with Bellsprout and Vivillon, but teams generally have a sense of how the metagame works. Smeargle is everywhere, and you will need something to take him out consistently. 1300 to 1400 is where you generally find good battles. Gone are the people bringing 1 or 2 Pokemon. Here, everyone brings 3 decent to very strong Mons. Charizard X and Y are everywhere, as is Mega Lopunny, Mega Slowbro, and Chansey. 1400 to 1500 is basically the same. People still use decent to powerful Pokemon and are generally good at predicting your choice based on team matchup. 1500 to 1600. I'd say that 1550 is the closest point that I can find that really qualifies as high ELO. Note that 1v1 has less players than other tiers, meaning that ELO means something different. 2100 or more ELO is possible in other tiers, but with so few players, all ELOs are much lower in 1v1. As I was saying, this ELO bracket is the beginning of perfectly tailored sets, very well built teams, good predictions in team preview, and counter teaming. I'll get a lot more into that, all those specific things in the later videos in this series. If you can make it to 1500, 1600, you are at a perfectly respectable rank in the 1v1 format. 1600 to 1700. High ELO. This means constant counter teaming or swapping sets, scouting opponents, tried and tested teams, and top tier Pokemon. Expect to see Kyurem Black everywhere alongside Zardex, Mega Gyarados, and Mega Mawile. This is the land of people who play 1v1 way too much. 1700 plus. Top of the ladder. If you can break 1700, it means you are ranked higher than essentially everyone. Expect to see some of the same faces over and over, like Ecstatic Cold, Glix, Chaymart, Pokemon Master, etc. The people up here are here for a reason, and a couple of losses in a row will knock you back down to the 1600s. Keep in mind that the higher you ELO, the easier it is to lose. In this game, with hacks and random chance, a couple of bad rolls or missed hyper beams can knock you way down the ladder. Hacks happens, be prepared for it. That's a lot of info. I just want to know what Pokemon to use. If you've never played the tier before, use whatever Pokemon you like. You're just getting into the metagame, you don't have to worry about what's good or not yet. Just learn how to use a team in the format and practice picking the right Mon based on your opponent's team. If you want to climb quickly out of low ELO, I suggest using a couple high-tier, hard-hitting Mons. Close Combat Giga Impact Mega Pinsir can single-handedly get you out of the low ladder. Mega Mawile plus anything that beats Charizard can get you easily past 1300. Once you get higher, I'd recommend checking out some sample teams, a bunch of those will be linked in the description, and taking a look at Smogon's viability rankings, also linked in the description. But again, if you're just getting started, the important thing isn't necessarily to have a flawless team, it's just to learn the format and understand gaining the edge on your opponent's team based on the 3 Pokemon that they have. If you already know 1v1 or have already found success playing it, stay tuned for next time where I'll get into the intricacies and psychology of the tier. Thanks for watching.